Hi, I'm Trevor Lund with this week's episode, and today I'm really happy to be able to introduce to you my friend Gary Meller. And Gary and I have been connected probably, we're just counting it up today, it was probably about 15 years we were in seminary, and time
On
flies.
time.
We, we've connected with each other more recently at different events, at different, maybe even revivals, I'm not sure, but uh, we've we've just seen some really fun things happen, and just to hear Gary's story, his stories. I want you to get to know them. Um, so, Gary, can you basically what I'd like people to hear is when were you in Brazil? How long ago was that?
It was less than a year ago in February of 2011, and and I think we got there in January 27th and came back February 8th, and it was an awesome time with signs, wonders, and miracles. Many people giving their lives to the Lord, and particularly an emphasis on identity and the love of God. Identity being that we are sons and daughters of God, and that when you have identity with Him, you have everything. And then the other aspect of it was learning about how much He loves us as sons and daughters. As we become more confident in that love, it enables us to go out into the street, which we do in Brazil on a daily basis, two, three times a day, and we would love on people. In fact, our favorite saying was "love the hell out of people." So sickness, torment, depression, the things that we become so accustomed to in our daily lives. We go to doctors, we get prescriptions, we learn to live with pain. These create a living hell on earth, and Jesus is free. 1 John chapter 3 says, "For this reason he was manifested to destroy the works of the devil." And so we went out there, and that's exactly what we did. We would find people in wheelchairs and canes and with a limp or blind or deaf, and we would pray for them, and God would heal them in the malls, not in the church. And in the church we'd see tons of miracles and deliverances, but in the actual streets, that's where we would see people being healed, and it was just amazing. And over, you would see people, their faces transformed, their bodies transformed, and become so excited with the realization that, you know what, God's not angry with me, He loves me. And they would reciprocate. As God would be good to them and is good, they would in turn start saying, you know what, I want to live for Him.
So why did you get to Brazil? How did you get to Brazil? Who were you with in Brazil? Like anyway, go.
Yeah, I was with a team called Power and Love. Tom Ruotolo, Chris Overstreet, Todd White, and Bob Hazlitt were the main speakers, and they do 4-day conferences across the United States, and Brazil was their first international trip. And so they were there by invitation, and they had given the opportunity for people to come on out. And originally, I wasn't supposed to be there. I had planned to be with Gary Oates' ministry much earlier in the year, or actually in 2010. But the Brazilian embassy didn't give me my visa, and so I wasn't able to be there on that particular trip. But it turns out it was very much God's will and timing for me to be in Brazil with the Power and Love team. And so their Tom's vision in particular is not simply to have a ministry where you go to church, you hear a good message, you even see a miracle, great worship, and you really feel good about yourself, and then you go have lunch. And then you get up the next day and do the same thing, but the community is not being impacted or changed. So he has designed a school of power and love that empowers individuals to go out and be real believers, be real sons and daughters every day, 24/7 on the street, and teaching people so that when you leave, it continues. And that is what's happened. I'm still in contact pretty well daily with the Brazilians who are still continuing to minister God's love out there. They're still continuing to see miracles. They're still continuing to prophesy and give words of knowledge. They're still continuing. And this, we're at the end of June, coming into July here, and they're going for it.
Hmm.
So it just speaks of the lasting legacy when people know who they are and really believe God's love for them. The kingdom of heaven comes. So yeah, a friend of mine told me about Power and Love when she heard that I wanted to go to Brazil and that I had not been able to go with Gary Oates' ministry. And said, hey, why don't you just on a chance check these guys out? And that was the word of the Lord.
Hmm.
Something as simple as a passing conversation. A lady says to me, by the way, did you know this is happening? Sometimes we write off the significance of who we are and God speaking through us, just in everyday conversation. So,
Yeah. That's so true because, God, when you get a glimpse of what the kingdom really is and that we're part of the kingdom and the kingdom is around us and in us and through us and boy, why on earth are we doing the things we're doing when we can actually, just invite God to be there and he's already there and it's awesome. What you had an incredible experience. God taught you something really profound in Brazil and he gave you something really unique. And can you tell that story about being frustrated when you wanted to speak and you couldn't speak Portuguese and what God taught you through that?
sure. We had been in a city called Annapolis. It's about 200,000 people, and had phenomenal time with the people that were there, and I just loved them. Love the people. I have a spiritual daughter from Brazil now, and a spiritual son, and there's just a relationship there that I'm so enthralled with. But our time had come to an end in a city called Annapolis, and we were on our way to Sao Paulo, which I just read yesterday is the seventh largest city in the world, and has a population of about 30 million people. So it was a pretty significant little city, Canada. At any rate, the day that we got there, I wanted to go out and talk to people. I wanted to see miracles happen. I wanted to love on people, and I didn't have an interpreter anymore. So on the evening there, it would have been about 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock, right in that time frame. I decided I would go for a walk and just pray and speak in tongues while I was there. And as I was walking along, I realized this is a great way to be silent before the Lord, because when you can't talk and you can't do anything, there's nothing to do but listen. So God began to show me individuals as they are walking on the street, doing the various activities of life, whether it be exercising, going to work, or working, or just hanging around. He would show me that here's one who's dealing with depression, here's one who's dealing with poverty, here's one who's dealing with performance, and there was nothing I could do about it. Absolutely nothing except pray. And so I prayed for them, but as I was walking along, a growing frustration in my spirit that I couldn't speak to anybody. And as I was walking along, the clouds opened up, and there was a ray of sun that came through, and I heard almost in an audible voice said to me, I love these people. I am God Almighty, and I will have a people for my glory. And it was such a comforting thing. I mean, just seeing the clouds open up, there was, it was overcast and slight rain. And I was thinking, wow, thank you, Lord. I appreciate that. That is encouraging. He says, I want you to just wait, like the woman at the well, when Jesus waited at the well for the woman to show up, the Samaritan woman. And he was saying, I want you to wait. So I found a retaining wall with a tree hanging over it so I wouldn't get the rain on me. It was kind of like an umbrella, and I just waited. And I was at an intersection where there was a bus terminal across the street, and I just, a few people passed by. I was watching them, and it was interesting. And then this beautiful young lady came walking up to me. She had a spring in her step, and she was obviously going somewhere and very excited about it. And she walked up to me and began to speak in Portuguese, and I responded, no fala Portuguese. And she said, oh, it's okay, smiled, and went across the street, and I watched her. as she crossed the street and went over to the bus stop. And as she was waiting and waiting and waiting, maybe 5-10 minutes at the most, I saw her again right at the intersection. But this time her head was hanging down, her shoulders were drooped, and she did not look happy. And as she came walking exactly the way that she had passed me the first time, and passed within maybe a foot and a half, 20 inches away from me, and I looked into her eyes, and they were full of tears. And I knew she was just going to find some place where she could go and be alone and cry. And inside of me, I felt this roar of frustration, because I knew that if I could just speak to her, I could do something for her. I could get her a cab. I had money on me. I had the means with which to help her, but there was nothing that I could do because of the language, my inability to speak Portuguese. Incidentally, I'm studying Portuguese now. So as I was feeling this groan inside of me, and it was just a heartbreaking groan, the Spirit of the Lord said to me, "Now you know what I feel like." Mm-hmm. He said, every day people come up to me and they say, "Oh God, help me! I need a miracle! Oh God, oh God!" And I'm right here. I have all the resources. I love people, but the problem is there's a communication breakdown. Sin has so destroyed the identity of people and has so marred the image of. We were created in the image of God, and that image is so marred and so disfigured that they can't hear His language. And then He said to me, "When will there be a people who understand the language of love?" Your issue is not an issue of Portuguese and English. Your issue is an issue of love, because love never fails. Love always breaks down the walls. And for me, that has become the nucleus and the motivation and the keystone of all that I do in ministry now.
Mm-hmm. That's so
love people, because when you can love people with the love of God, 1 Corinthians 13, you will get results. You will. It won't be making people into trophies. You'll be loving them and honoring them for who they are, and people are attracted to that. And so everything that I do flows out of that one particular revelation there. So I'm glad I couldn't speak Portuguese on one hand, because it was the moment where God was able to teach me a lesson, and yet I pray that young lady finds out about that love as well.
That's awesome, Gary. Thank you so much for being with us today. We're going to be back next week with continuing this interview with Gary, because I want him to tell you about some of the things that are happening now here back in Canada through when he steps out in faith and just wants to love on people. And I love that. I still laugh. We got to make T-shirts. We're here to love the hell out of people.
Amen. Amen.
Anyway, thank you so much, Gary. We'll catch you next time.
Bless you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This episode has been brought to you by Expectancy Press, resources that impart hope and empower destiny. When you choose to purchase products from expectancypress.com, you're supporting the work of Expectancy Ministries. Are you a little afraid to do what God's told you to do? Get a copy of How Big Is Your Butt by Trevor Lund today.